Greek authorities have suspended deportations of asylum seekers back to Turkey. Aid groups had criticised the move by the EU and Turkey to slow the tide of migration into Europe. Now, Greece's Director of Asylum Services says 3,000 people in deportation camps have applied for political protection. The application process is formally expected to start by the end of the week, but an unnamed Turkish government official says 200 so-called economic migrants are expected to make the journey from Greece tomorrow. And the Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu says 78 Syrian refugees were resettled in Germany on Monday. Some of the refugees arrived in Hanover by plane from Istanbul. It was the first such move under a disputed European Union deal. The European Commission says more resettlement flights are due to the Netherlands on Tuesday. Well, Annalise Borges has more on this story from the Greek island of Lesbos.
Greek authorities have now suspended the deportation scheme. They have acknowledged that most refugees and migrants stranded in Greece have requested asylum. There are more than 3,000 people here on the island of Lesbos. Most of them have arrived after March 20th, when the EU relocation plan came into effect. They are being kept at a detention facility called Moria, and that's where about 100 people are staging a protest as we speak. They are demonstrating against the conditions inside that camp. We are getting reports that the conditions are worsening by the day. Refugees talk about a shortage of food. They say there is not enough beds for everyone to sleep. Most of them are sleeping out in the open. They complain, of course, about the deportation scheme. They say that most of those men who were taken back to Turkey that first day, they were taken out in the middle of the night. They had plastic bands around their arms. They say that is inhumane, and they do not agree with the measures to send them back. They say they have nothing to go back to. They need to keep their journey. They have then, most of them, applied for asylum here in Greece, and Greece changed its legislation to fast-track the asylum process in order to deal with these requests a little bit faster. These processes now are taking about 2 weeks. It used to take months for Greece to analyze each process. And this whole EU deal to send refugees back requests that Greece only sends people who do not apply for asylum here or whose claims are rejected. This deal was designed to stem the number of refugees landing on Europe's shores, but we continue to hear people arriving every day on Greek islands. In Lesbos, 57 people have arrived in the last few hours. Most of them are from Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
Now, once those classed as economic migrants arrive in Turkey, they're bussed over 400 kilometres to a processing centre in the country's northwest. Nicole Johnson is there and sent us this update.
On Monday night, 10 buses of migrants arrived at this deportation centre behind me. We're about an hour away from Turkey's border with Bulgaria. Now, some of the men waved to us as their buses travelled through the gates here. They'd had a long and difficult day. They'd been sent from Greece to Turkey. Turkey is now signing repatriation agreements with around 14 countries. And over the next week, these men will have their paperwork processed, and after that, they will likely be returned to their countries. Most of them will be going home with nothing. They've spent thousands of dollars giving that money to people smugglers in the hope and the dream of starting a new life in Europe. They're really the victims of these international people smuggling gangs, as well as Europe's increasing sentiment against refugees and migrants.